Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Inspiring Women. Today's session is an open water swimming with myself, Coach Chris, and I am being sponsored by Balance and Kanakwa Sports. So let's begin. So, Women Inspiring Women was an idea that I came up with. There is a Facebook page called She Swims BC, and this is strictly to inspire and give women a chance to learn how to swim in open water, ask questions in a nice, safe environment, and everything. So I'm hoping to give you insight today on my journey as a marathon swimmer and also swim coach. So tonight we're going to learn about discovering how to break through the barriers of becoming an open water swimmer. And I will also talk a bit about my journey as from facing fear to conquering a marathon swim. So I hope that you will enjoy and feel free to ask questions afterwards. If you are new to this kind of journey, there's always lots of questions, and we are happy at Balance to answer them for you. All right, so my name is Christina Ostenstad. I go by Chris. I am a certified triathlon Canada coach and also a swim coach and triathlete coach at Balance. Balance is located here in Vancouver and Lower Mainland and up in Kamloops and the Okanagan area. So we have three coaches. We basically do a lot of coaching in triathlon specific, and we break it down by open water, um, in the pool, running, and anything else in between. So I'm also a BC Regional Director for Kanakwa Sports, and I'm also a member of WOWSA, which is the World Open Water Association for open water swimmers. So all right, so we're going to start a bit. A couple pictures here of myself. These were taken on my very longest swim that I've ever done, which was a 20-kilometer swim. And I did that in 2022. And it was an experience I will never forget. And I have to say, I've come a very long way since when I started swimming to this moment in time when I took on this challenge. So here's a little bit of background on my story. So as a kid, we grew up around water. These are pictures of me in the Okanagan in Skaha Lake. I probably spent about 40 odd years taking a vacation there with my family and family friends. So we were always encouraged to learn how to swim because it was a life skill. And probably from the time I was 6 months old, I was chucked into a pool and learned how to swim. So as a kid growing up, we did spend a lot of time of taking holidays up in the Okanagan. Sometimes we would be in White Rock, um, in Surrey, BC, and also too in Hawaii. So I did grow up a bit in Hawaii and have some pretty fond memories of swimming in the ocean. However, when I was about 5 years old, my parents decided, hey, let's try snorkeling. So we went to Hanama Bay, and this was the very first time I went snorkeling. I was probably 5 or 6, and that experience was terrifying for me. As we were sitting there waiting for the snorkel guide to get our gear all ready, I was standing there in the water, and this big eel came and wrapped around my legs, and it completely terrified me. And from that day forward, I was afraid of open water. I was afraid of everything in the ocean, everything in the lake. So you can see in these pictures that here I am on a paddleboard, and that was as far as I was going to get after 5 years old. I would be on a paddleboard, on an air mattress. I was not touching the ground of the lake or the ocean. I did not want to see a fish. So I had a lot of trauma from that experience, and I never really realized how much it impacted my life until I decided that I wanted to do a triathlon. And that's when I learned that um, I needed to learn how to overcome those fears. So one of my experiences was a triathlon. And this is kind of what started my whole journey into becoming an open water swimmer. I have a very good friend who, back in about 2013, 2015, he said to me, he says, "You need to do something." At that point in my life, I was overweight. I was not very active. I would ride a bike. I definitely wasn't swimming. And I said to him, I said, "What can't you do?" And he said, "I could never do a triathlon because I can't swim." And I thought, I can swim. I'm sure I can swim. So, on my quest of doing my first triathlon, I needed to find a place that I could do my swim in a pool, because I knew that doing it outside in an open water environment was just not going to happen for me. And sure enough, I found my very first triathlon in Langley, and I could do it because it was in a pool. Now, my swimming was not that great at that time, but my whole goal was to beat my friend because we're a little bit competitive back and forth with the things that we do. And actually, many years later, he has now completed a triathlon and has learned how to swim by me. So it comes full circle for him too. So this triathlon was a really good experience. It was just a small little sprint, so we didn't have to swim very far. It was maybe 500 meters, which is kind of a little bit less than what a typical sprint triathlon would be. And it also, the bike was about 20K and the run was 5K. And I was not very good when it came to running. That was just not my thing. However, cycling was okay. So I did manage to get through it okay and survive. Next event after this, I decided to train for a half iron. And at this point, I knew that things would change for me because I would definitely not find a half Ironman in a pool. So that was my next journey. So moving on to that next triathlon, of course, was with the open water. And what happened? If I was going to do it, it took a whole village to help me get there to be able to survive, because I feared water and I feared the things in the water. So when I would swim very fast and I would have a lot of anxiety. And because I am an anxious person, this just did not help. So getting it done was the goal, and I needed to learn how to navigate this process. So this is a picture of me at Sasamat Lake, and it was the first time I ever went into Sasamat Lake with a friend of mine. And she came in the kayak, and we just went back and forth in the shallow end. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. I never saw any fish. I was totally okay. And later on, she would start guiding me out a little farther into the deeper end. And I thought, I guess it's okay. We'll see how it all goes. But this was my very first experience. So, my fears are quite a few things. I fear fish. Fish is the big one because of the experience that I had in Hanama Bay as a child. That did not sit well with me. So just looking at these little tiny fish in the water or big fish would just kind of freak me out. The other thing that I feared was water snakes. And they're not something that you commonly see. However, I did see a lot of them as a kid growing up on Skaha Lake and Okanagan Lake. And they generally hang out in the weedy areas where there's like no beach or anything. But I don't know how many times I ran into water snakes. So again, not a snake person, not a fish person. So, and then also too, it's the unknown below the surface. What is down there? A lot of my clients that come to me for open water sessions, they come with similar fears, fear of darkness, fear of going into a deep pool, the unknown below the surface, not having an edge to hang on to, like no pool edge when you're in the lake, and what if I can't get back? And these are the most common fears that people will have. And for me, I had to work through it my own way to kind of get through the fears. But I I believe that with the method of swimming that I chose to do, this actually helped conquer these fears. And now today, I'd have to say I don't really experience complete anxiety. But once in a while, I do if I do see a fish go flying on by. So will it ever be totally cured of that fear? Probably not. But we can just keep trying and we just keep moving forward. So, one of the things that I say is breaking through the barriers. Go slow. Take your time to get used to swimming in open water. Time is of the essence. Bring along a friend, like I had my friend Kelly who came along on a kayak and she would go with me. My next time that I started to go out in the open water, I used to have a multitude of friends that would come with me. Some of them would come on a stand-up paddleboard, and that's kind of how I made my way around Sasamat Lake. I would swim close to the shore, so I always had a bailout plan. If I was not in too deep of water, I could totally get out of the water and I could walk back. So there was no issue there. So that was another strategic move that we made just to kind of get me used to that. Swimming with a wetsuit on. So a lot of people may not be aware, but a wetsuit gives you total flotation. And the nice thing is, you can be swimming, you might get tired, you might get anxiety. You can stop, flip onto your back, and just float and take some time and just ease into it. So, using a wetsuit definitely helps a lot. So, always remember that a wetsuit will help you. swimming with a swim buddy, and in the down in the right hand corner is a swim buddy. So this is like a little blow up bag that you can pull behind you when you're swimming. And the nice thing about this is you can stop, you can kind of hang on to it, and you can just float around on it. And it's not supposed to be used as a life preserver, but it does help for sure. And it's meant that people will see you when you're in the lake. So when you're in a busy lake, when there's a lot of boats and stuff, this is supposed to make you more visible. However, you can still hold on to it. It will keep you up. So it's another device that we often use. The other thing to break through the barriers is know your water before you swim. Ask for advice before you dive in. Always find out where you are, what you're swimming, what's in the water. What should I be careful about? Is there a rip tide where I'm swimming? Is there a reef where I'm swimming? Like there's all these other things that you should know before you go in. Knowing that will definitely give you an advantage and also ease anxiety if you are an anxious swimmer. So the other thing is, are you swimming in a lake or are you swimming in an ocean? Both are very, very different. Swimming in an ocean is salt water, therefore you're more buoyant and you can float around quite nicely. Swimming in a lake, not so buoyant. Um, and also too, lakes can be quite deep and quite dark. And that's another fear that a lot of people have is the darkness. I only look at it as I'm swimming on the top of the surface. So I might be down, say, like a foot down into the water, and anything past that foot, it's dark. I don't see it. So I don't see the bottom. So that's totally fine with me. That becomes my virtual bottom, really. So sometimes that kind of helps the mind, ease the mind a bit. Remember, you're always floating on top of the surface. You're not going down below. Another advice, find a beginner training in open water with a coach. As coaches, we take things slow. We also only work at your own pace and guide you through the process. And we will try these same tricks to get you in swimming in open water. The other one's a sports psychologist. And we actually have a client that is a sports psychologist. And she has definitely feared water. She has feared the deep end. And she has a way of kind of talking about, you know, how to overcome these fears, like anything else in life. So you can always engage with a sports psychologist. They generally deal a lot more with competitiveness in the sport and stuff. However, fear does come up. The other thing is cognitive behavior therapy. And this is something that you can go see a counselor or a psychologist about. And it's basically, they help you go through the motion of the swim and kind of visualize it before it happens. And this is something that I learned about in 2019, and it really did help kind of conquer fear. And also, too, is never rush the process. Going slow has its benefits. Rushing the process can sometimes have consequences that, can lead to a really bad experience. So I always say, don't rush the process. Take your own time at it. Enjoy the process. So other things too is when you're swimming, you can always have a swim buddy, which is what I'm holding on the right hand side. Or you can even go one step farther, and especially if you want to go into like a long distance swim, you can have a handler. And these handlers are generally friends, spouses, people that you trust who will watch out for you and be your ears and eyes and guide you through the water. So you don't have to worry about which direction you're going. You follow a boat, and it makes life a lot easier, and it's a lot more calm. When you are on these long distance swim, your handler will also um, be the person who doesn't tell you what to do, but they will guide you. They'll make sure that you get all your nutrition that you need while you're on a swim. And they will also pretty much tell you if you're over your head and you're starting to fall apart. So it's good to have those people with you, because sometimes when we get into the situation that we're swimming long distances, our brain says we got to keep going, we got to keep going, but physically, mentally, we may not be able to keep going. So sometimes your handler is a good person to be able to make that decision and kind of help you through it. So where things really changed for me was the discovery of total immersion. I attended a total immersion swim camp in 2021 in Penticton. And this was the ultimate for me. Um, Total immersion has become a swim method where we go looking for our cocoon of calm. We want to try and make our strokes easy, and we're not here for, speed and running out full out and throwing our arms and flapping around. We pretty much take a very mindful approach of swimming. It's very different than what we were taught in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where we were taught, let's go faster by um, just moving our arms faster. And that, in actual fact, was what I was doing. Um, I used to swim with no purpose at all. I would just kind of go out and I would swim as fast as I could. And this is not in open water, this would have been in the pool. The method that I would use would be something that I had learned in the 70s when I was swimming on a club. And that was something that completely changed for me. So now all of a sudden I had a purpose, and I also had focal points that I had to pay attention to because I was coached through this method to be able to get through my long distance swim. So let's go dive in a little bit more of what total immersion means. So total immersion is the phase of a practicing Kaizen swimming, which certainly is mindful swimming. This is what it means, right? Um, Basically, we use a whole stroke with balance. We put ease and control into it, and we enjoy what we're doing. And we'll basically learn how to swim balanced and tall. So a lot of times when people are swimming, they're not balanced. You'll see people swimming like this trajectory. Their legs are down here, their head is up here. We will sometimes see people like this. Their head is way under the water and their legs are up on the surface. We want to be at a nice balanced, nice flotation, um, basically keeping ourselves in that position the whole time, because being in a balanced position means that we are streamlined and that we're able to stay in this streamlined position and keep moving forward without effort. So we become quite effortless. And you might be thinking, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to explain a little bit more to you, because it's not something that you learn overnight, but it definitely can help in having a comfortable swim. The other thing we do is we also learn to breathe rhythmically without interrupting that flow. And we always keep our hands anchored out in front of us the whole time. So learning to start each stroke with a patient hand and keeping hold of the water out front of us while we're staying in a balanced motion. And this is pretty much the method. So what does balance mean? Balance means having a fully relaxed body. So relaxing your head and your neck in the water. You should always be in that plane, right? So your head spine alignment should be on one plane. Your head should always be facing down or forward down to the ground, the bottom of the pool or the bottom of the lake. You lengthen the back of your neck and you extend your arms out nice and relaxed and slightly drop our hands into that position. We also keep our stroke in line. So if you visualize that you are on this large railway track, your arms will go onto the tracks with each stroke. So one stroke goes into the track, the other one goes into the track. We never ever want to be crossed in the front. We always want our arms to be out. Our legs actually follow the same track. So visualize yourself being on a balanced track, arms on the front of the track, legs on the back of the track. We call this wide tracks for the recovery and extension. And we rotate only enough to clear our shoulder when we're coming up for a breath. So when we come up for a breath, it's very little. It's like keeping that head in line with the arm and rotating our head up just a little bit and then back down to the bottom of the surface. And by doing this, we're not breaking our streamline. And keeping that streamlined position will keep it easier and more comfortable when you swim. So body position, long, sleek lines. Spearing hand towards a target. So think about that railway track. When I'm spearing in, I'm going to make sure that I hit that railway track every time on each side, keeping that in there. And keeping my legs within that body line, it's like a slipstream. So always keep one hand out front of your head. And even when you roll up to breathe, that arm should be anchored out in front of you at all times, because this is what gives us that balanced swim. So recovery and entry. So recovery arm is a nice, relaxed, loose arm. And what I talk about with the recovery arm is when we're out in the front like this other arm that's taking a stroke is going to be nice and wide, and then it's going to drop it in to that position. Let me drop it in. And keeping a soft entry, so always have relaxed hands when you enter into the water. And maintain a smooth, controlled motion. This is what we want. It's like everything should be very smooth. So holding your position in the water. So your hand will enter opposite of your extended arm. And it literally is like when you hit between your elbow and your top of your forearm, that is when you're going to make the switch into it. So you might pause briefly and then you'll take the stroke. And then when you've catched the water, you're going to hold the water and that before pulling it back. So your focus is holding water, pulling it back, and it doesn't have to be hard. It should be a very easy motion. Not pulling hard, gives you a lot of like less stress on your body. So less stress on the arms, on the neck, on the shoulders, and also that muscles in your arms and stuff. So always making sure when you pull, you've got a little bit of gap between your fingers, because you'll break the molecules of the water on your pull a lot easier than cupping your hand and pulling hard. So nice and relaxed. We also use our core. And when I talk about our core, it is not just your core muscles in your stomach. Your core starts at the top of your rib cage and goes to about midway down your thighs. That whole trunk of your body is your core position. And we work with our core and our spear at the same time. And this is how we propel through the water. So we use like our hip drive to push ourselves forward in the water. And by rotating back and forth on a 45-degree angle, this is what glides us through the water. So it's basically rhythmic by hip drive and not using like arm strokes to get there faster and farther. It's going to be pushing with our hips to move us farther and faster through the water as you get used to it. Breathing is another thing. Many of our clients come to us and say, breathing is hard. And breathing is hard. Most people don't have the right head position for breathing. They generally will come up so high out of the water. Sometimes they're looking at the ceiling. Sometimes they're looking way back behind them. When in actual fact, you want to use your body, your arm position, your body position in that streamline. You only want to come up a little bit, and it should be one goggle out of the water, and that's it. But it takes a lot of practice to get that. And the goal is by keeping everything very low, you're not going to break your streamline, and that's what we're after. Some of my clients learn how to rhythmic breathe, and what we do with rhythmic breathing is with every stroke we take, we let a little puff of air out. So it's like little air out as you're taking the stroke. So little air out, and then you take a little breath in, and then it's back to little air out. So that is one of the methods that you can use, is rhythmic breathing. Sometimes people just do a steady stream of like nice relaxed air out the whole time as they're swimming along, and then take in a breath. But make sure that you're letting just enough out and bringing just enough in so it moves really easily. I like to think of breathing as like walking. So when I'm swimming in a very low method and like relaxed state, I'm like I'm walking the whole time, and my breathing is not heavy, and it just goes super easy and slow. The other thing too is kicking. So kicking, legs should stay relaxed and minimal. Now there's many different kicks that you can learn to do. For me, because I just specialize in the open water, I 2-beat kick. And what that is one kick with one pull. And this gives me an advantage of I can kick with a 2-beat kick the whole time and never get tired. So again, it's just another skill that you can learn, and it will definitely help being able to save your legs. And also too, if you're doing it for triathlon, you can save your legs by using a 2-beat kick going on and stuff. So we don't want to have huge high flutter kicks or like heavy duty where we're hitting the surface. We just want nice, controlled, straight-legged kick. 2 beat. There are other methods. There's a 4 beat and a 6 beat, and we do use those for other reasons. 6 beat, we would generally use that when we want to gather lots of speed, maybe when we're sprinting towards the end of a race. 4 beat is sometimes used when we're trying to get out of a windy situation where we have lots of chop coming. So we may use a bit of a 4 beat kick to kind of propel ourselves over the waves to get us going. But generally, if the weather is good and things are fairly calm, you can generally get through with a nice 2 beat kick. So overall focus, move quietly and smoothly through the water at all times. Avoid tension and don't struggle in practice. Always try and keep things at a nice, calm, and easy pace. When I first was swimming, I used to be worried about what people would think about my time on Strava. I was addicted to gadgets, and I still use gadgets. I have my Garmin watch. I don't always pay attention to it other than my distance that I've gone, but I don't pay attention much to my time because my time is my own time, and I'm going to get there in my own pace. For me, as an open water swimmer, we don't have generally cutoffs when we're going into big, long swims. In a triathlon, yes, you do have a cutoff. And so that's kind of where the difference is. However, depends what your goal is, whether you're just out there to enjoy a swim. Um, you don't have to go fast. If you're out there competing in a triathlon, then you're going to want to train a bit so you can get speed in with your swim. So, all depends what your focus is at that point. So here's one of the things. The picture on the left is what a relaxed swim looks like. And note on this picture how streamlined the position is. So these two swimmers, you can see that they have their arms out anchored in the front on both of them, and they are about to come up for a breath. So their head is not going to change. It's going to be their center of their head will be in line with this arm as they roll up, take a breath, and then when this arm comes down, they're going to still maintain this nice streamlined position. Now, you can also see too that their kick is obviously under the water because there is no turbulation, I think that's the word, in their kick. So make sure that you keep a nice easy kick under the water. So, and the other, it's just a picture of me being me. So how to get starting. So I have this question all the time. I've got people that say they want to get started in a long distance swim. Now, I have to tell you what long distance really means to me. A long distance starts, in my mind, at 500 meters. Yes, this is long distance. What is a short distance? Anything under 5, I would say, is long distance. So a 500 meter, 700 meter, and then 1,000 meter, which is 1 kilometer, and then we go up from there. So no matter what you're doing, long distance is going to be at least a 500 meter. Always build up slowly, So things to consider is not all training plans are created equal. You can go and you can download a program off of Garmin, off of Strava, everywhere. And a lot of these plans that they give you are cookie cutter plans. They are meant for everybody. However, they are generally geared towards people who are super young who may already have some experience. And with these plans, you have to be quite careful because you can open yourself up to injury. Um, some people, maybe you're 25 years old, you might be able to sustain a cookie cutter plan. However, when you get to my age, over 55, closer to 60, that just doesn't do it. So I cannot sustain it because I don't have the endurance like I did when I was 25. So you have to be very careful what you're looking at. There's lots of programs that are couched to 5K for running and things like that. And sometimes they will work. But again, remember, go at your own pace and don't rush the process. Slow and steady wins the race. And if it takes you extra time to train for it, that is totally okay. You know that they always say that Rome was never built in a day. And achieving your goal, whether it's going to be a 500 meter or 1 kilometer or a 20K, it's going to take time to build that up. Other things that you can do to enhance your training is weightlifting. When I was training for my full swim, which my very first long distance swim, like marathon distance, would have been 12K. And I was training 5 days a week in swimming. And my average swim would be anywhere from 2.5 kilometers to almost 4 kilometers every time I went out and swam. My other days, I would either combine it with a swim training day, or I would add on my extra day off as a gym day. Building up lat muscles, that was a huge thing. So lats and building up my core strength and also my leg strength. So these things can help for sure when you're trying to achieve a goal. And even if you only do twice a week and it's very simple and it's like 20 minutes of home weights, anything will help. And I totally recommend that this is something that everybody should do when they are training for an event like swimming. So there is tons of programs out there and stuff. Tri-Balance, we offer a beginner open water swim. We generally do it in Port Moody at Sassmat Lake in mid-June. And sometimes we'll even run another one in August and September, depending what the demand is. We also do a wonderful camp in Penticton, which is a little bit more full on. It's basically 4 days of swimming. And those camps can help you learn the method that we teach, the total immersion method. And I totally recommend, look into something like that or look into a total immersion coach. What you'll find is in Canada, there is only one total immersion coach, and that would be Teresa, who is the owner of Tri-Balance. So if you come to us, this is a method you're going to learn. So the next part I'm going to talk about is events. So we have lots of events. Because I am a BC race director for Kanakwa Sports, I run 2 races out of Sassmat Lake in Port Moody and one at Westwood Lake in Nanaimo. And we offer a open water swim, and it's a 1, 3, or 5 in all 3 of the events, and we have no time cutoff because our philosophy is you should come and enjoy the experience of having a race, which is more of an event, and we are still going to be waiting for you at the finish line because it's not like it's not an easy thing. So we want to encourage swimmers of all caliber, whether you're new or experienced, to come and actually do it and have a good time. It should never be a full-on race where you kill yourself and it's terrible, right? So that's one of the things that we always encourage. We also have a different division, which we call the mud skipper races. And what the mud skipper race is, it's a swim run, but it's multi-stages. So this is a great event for people that do like to do it. What you do is you might swim 1 kilometer and then you might run 3 kilometers and then you'll dive back into the water, swim another kilometer and then run another 3 kilometers. And with this event, it's a little different because you wear your running shoes when you're swimming. You bring a pull buoy, which you put between your legs, which will help you for not sinking because your running shoes are waterlogged. And you also have hand paddles that you can use to pull yourself through the water to make it easier because you are swimming with running shoes on. And then what you do is once you get out of the water, you got your running shoes, you're ready to go. And you still have your swim cap on. Sometimes you take it off, sometimes they don't. It really depends on who you are and what you do. It's a fun event. It's very different, and it's just starting to really take off in BC. It originally started in Sweden many, many years ago and has become into these world qualifying events. BC, we actually host the BC Championships, which are at the end of September. We call it the Fresh and Salty. And the swim is in Sasamat, and the run, we run over to Belcara and they dive into the ocean. They have a swim in the ocean, and then they run back over to the lake and swim again. So definitely fun event. We get a really good turnout for the BC Championships. And if you're looking at going down that route, you can definitely ask anybody at TriBalance. We actually have a coach that will help you train in running, and our running program is called Chi Running. So definitely something to check out on our website if you are interested. Yeah, so that is pretty much us in a nutshell. Here again, I'm going to just say recommended if you want a mini open water camp experience. You can join me at Sasamat Lake. We'll be doing it in June. Or in Penticton, we'll be doing a big camp in July. And the other thing too is if you have a group of friends that you want to get together and you say, hey, I'd like to do a mini camp, you just email us, because chances are we are quite willing to come and put on the event for you. Just because we believe that everybody should learn to swim and be able to be comfortable at swimming. So we like to encourage swimming all the time. So that concludes this presentation about open water swimming. I hope that you will dive in. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@tribalance.ca. Myself or Teresa, we will happily answer any questions for you. Hope to see you soon.